And I joke now, I think we were kind of in the like the teenage years of like, we're going to do it on our own. You know, like we want to move out and live on our own. And then we did our own ESOP. We found out like, groceries cost a lot. And like living on your own is hard. And by the end of that year, we could have absolutely continued on. Like there was no reason why we felt like we had to sell. But we had an amazing opportunity to go from 30% to 100% employee owned. So it was a significant decision, and it was one of the best decisions I think we've ever made. I want to build an agency where we can, not only do great work for great change-making organizations to grow good, whatever good looks like in that organization, but also where at the end of the day, those employees know that their future and their family's future is better because of it.
On Creative Assembly's The Spark podcast, our mission is to amplify Nashville's diverse creative voices, foster growth through shared journeys, and inspire a city that thrives on collaboration. And now, here's The Spark.
Welcome back to The Spark. I'm your host, Mark Scrivner, and today I'm joined by Shannon Litton. Shannon, it's great to have you here. Shannon is the CEO of 3LS Professional Services and founder of 5x5, a change agency. Shannon, so great to have you on the show.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah.
So good to be here.
Thank you for making time out for our guests. We're excited to hear about your story, and I can't wait to hear about the new opportunity that you've had and you've given to all your employees. So through the ESOP plan.
Yeah, excited to share.
Yeah, well, hey, as I was doing research on you, you trained as an English teacher before you even got in this crazy world of agency.
I did. I had one specific goal in life, and that was to be a teacher because I wanted summers off with my kids. I thought that what a great job to have. And I did that for a couple of years. I taught middle school English, and I loved it. I mean, I've actually thought someday down the road, maybe I find myself in a classroom of some kind again, because it was really something that I loved. But we moved from Florida to Tennessee, and I was not certified in Tennessee. And I thought, the honest thing I thought was maybe I can make a little more money for a bit while I work on that certification. And I ended up with an English degree in a marketing department. This is how I age myself to all the young team members, helping to write an employee newsletter back when we would type it, print it, fold it up and put it in envelopes and send it to our employees around the country. And my English skills came in handy for that. And then I fell in love with marketing, and I guess the rest happened from there.
What did that teaching, teach you about how you ran an agency?
Yeah, I mean, I think running a classroom is leadership, and especially, I don't have elementary experience, but with middle schoolers, I mean, they're, developing adults. And so to sit in that classroom and run that classroom, there are things you learn, as a 21-year-old right out of college. There's things that you have to learn quickly with not the most forgiving audience of 13-year-olds, right? And I think just running a classroom with expectations. So learned very quickly to be big on setting what the expectations are. Day one, here's my expectations. And we're going to have a whole lot of fun around this, but we're always going to meet these expectations. I think that carried on throughout my career. And I think communication, that's probably the English part too, but I think just being able, beyond just marketing communications, being able to communicate to people, right? To be able to be clear and as simple as you can be as a teacher, I think really serves you well, not only in marketing, but in leadership.
Yeah. Before the show, you mentioned how you became an accidental agency person, and you followed a person you worked with, Maurelio, who owned the A Group agency, right? Yeah. And you spent 13 years with him after accidentally falling into this. Maybe talk just a hair about that.
Yeah, I did. I mean, he and I worked at another company. I worked for him. I had only been there about 6 months, and I loved my job. And so I was not real happy when he came one day and said, hey, I'm going to leave and start my own agency. Would you go with me? But I was 23, and so he made me an offer I could not refuse at the age of 23, which is, I probably can't pay you for a while, but you can be the executive vice president. Yeah. And I was like, sign me up. That sounds amazing. Nobody told me that the executive vice president just does everything that the president doesn't want to do when there's two of you. But it was really, I mean, you look back on a career, and there's some things where like it was just kind of these accidental opportunities. And I could have easily not taken that. I did like my job. I was, they offered for me to stay there when he was leaving. And it was one of those significant things to walk out the door, to make no money, to start something with somebody who I really believed in, and really proud of what we built over those years together. And the accidental part is also then I was accidentally an executive vice president and had to figure out what that looks like and build an agency from the ground up, and it was very fun to do.
When was the point that you thought, hey, I want to go out on my own and build something for me instead of helping build somebody else's dream?
At one point, I knew what I had done there was over. And I think that's one of these moments you look back, and I don't know that I can fully explain it, but it was the right thing in hindsight. And so left there and decided to start another agency. So within 6 months, we were back at it, and it was actually scarier the second time because I knew how hard it was. The first time, there's this kind of this blissful ignorance of, we're just going to start a company. And the second time I was starting it, Mark, I had 5 kids already.
Oh, wow.
And I had a 6-month-old. And so the first time we did this, I had no children, and I worked 6.5 days a week for about the first 2 years, right? And I knew I couldn't do that this second time. But I also believed I could maybe do it a little different and smarter and get some growth happening a little quicker. And had a couple other partners that also had agency experience. My business partner, Josh Miller, was at Paramore.
Guy. Yeah.
Amazing guy. We had worked together at a nonprofit before I even met Murillo.
Okay.
So kind of bringing everybody back together. And we all just thought hopefully we've learned something in building these other businesses that we could kind of get something going quickly. And it really did. We were blessed in that the ramp up was, I would say, quicker the second time than it was the first.
Well, I look forward to digging into that. And just watching you launch 5x5, it's been very impressive to see from the outside. I know you guys have scaled up. You've done some amazing work. You've had some really, like you still do, like the agency still has some super creative people down there. And so I've always just been enamored by the way you've grown that. And not only that, but built the culture. And I guess saying that, it's 5x5, a change agency for change makers. Like, when did that come into the speak? Was that day one? Was that like through you started to see things with clients?
Well, again, I think it's one of those accidental things that, you look back, and I'd love to say this was the most strategic thing we did, right? I think it became a part of our brand, and then it began to have more and more meaning, and we continued to infuse meaning into it. I remember sitting on the porch of a coffee house in Franklin, Tennessee, before we had a space to meet. We went between the bagel shop and the coffee shop as our meeting place. And I remember sitting there and a change agency coming up, and we're like, well, what could that mean? And talking about that. And I think there's something to that. But then our focus on serving mission-driven organizations really brought the change maker piece in. And I would say, honestly, the change maker piece became more significant when people latched onto us than us saying this is something significant. Okay. So we would have people come in, or we'd have, get an inquiry, and they say, hey, this change maker thing feels like us. And so it was clients and community identifying with it, where we said, there's really something here. And so, we've built a culture around change makers serving change makers. So our team has to be change makers. Like for us, there's more than just one bottom line. There's a missional element. I think the employee ownership piece really played into that well for us. It was kind of the culmination of building that. And then serving change makers. That doesn't mean we don't have some, purely for-profit organizations. We do, but the core business still are either nonprofits, mission-driven organizations, things in healthcare, real, good for good type of work.
That's interesting. And I mean, you grew it to, well over a couple hundred different clients that you've worked with. I know you've been on the Inc. 5000 list many times.
Yeah.
And so, and you've stayed in that space, which shows real discipline. But I bet you that you've had to turn away some really big corporate brands that wanted to be a part of being one of your clients.
Yeah, we have, and we also said, I think when you say we serve this type of client, you do have to be willing to turn away, and you also have to be willing to explain to your team why when you don't turn somebody away. We found that was even more important. So if we bring something in, now there's things that we're not going to do. There are times where, I'm going to be real honest with you here.
Yeah.
An organization with a really great budget comes in and asks us to do something that we know we can knock out of the park.
Yeah.
And so we kind of created these parameters that we would share with the team that, we serve change makers. This is the type of client we're looking for. If somebody comes along that fits this criteria, one, there's nothing about them that is antithetical to anything we stand for.
Yeah.
And two, the budget's good, right? There are times where a really good nonprofit comes in and we're like, we'll figure out how to work with it. We're not going to lower budgets for somebody that's outside of our core type of client. And then, like I said, the work is something we know we can do. There are times we're all learning. We're going to try something new for that core client because we're going to learn and grow. But if they're in our core and we know that it's something that we can do without a whole lot of pain and suffering, right? We're going to take that client. But we also have been very intentional, no matter how big the brand. I've got some pretty big brands that would be really impressive on a client list, that we don't talk about those projects publicly because we don't want it to chip away at our We Serve Changemakers brand. And so being able, that comes back to that clarity, being able to articulate that to team, like, hey, you're going to see a new client on our list. It may not feel like it makes sense to you. Let us tell you why. It was an opportunity. Being able to take this revenue actually helps us to serve changemakers better. That was really significant for us when we could articulate that, and it allowed us, I think, to say yes to some things without the fear that it would chip away our brand or confuse the public or our team or other people.
Yeah, and that communication, it sounds like it was very critical to your team that then helped continue to elevate the culture that you were building.
People just want to know why.
Totally.
Right. Over the years, I've just learned, like, there's just tell me why you made the decision. And even if I don't agree with it, I'll get it.
Yeah.
There's so many things we do as leaders, and we're moving so fast, not because we're terrible. We're moving so fast that we don't think to go back and say, oh, let me tell you why we took this client, right? And so I think the intentionality of just being open to people asking you why. We have to start as that with leaders, right? And then being intentional about saying, hey, you might be wondering this. Let me explain this to you. I think we should do that more.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to go back to what you did differently the second time.
Yeah.
To be able to handle the family and the business and then build the kind of culture that you've built over the years. Like what were those things that you infused in 5 by 5?
Yeah. Well, the first thing we did is absolutely the wrong thing when you start an agency, and we brought in our executive team first.
Okay.
So a lot of agencies are built with one exec expert, and then we bring in administrative support. We did the opposite. We knew we would need that type of capacity to deliver what we wanted to deliver out of the gate. So there were 5 of us, not where the name came from, but there's 5 of us that started. And we all had agency and or, big brand CMO experience. The pressure that put on us was that we had to ramp up revenue really quick. And our goal was by the end of the first year that everybody would be getting a regular paycheck. And we did it. And so I think there was a healthy tension in that of we're sink or swim. Like we are all in. We know what our salaries are, and it's going to be a stretch to do it. And we did it. So that's the first thing that everybody that tells you how to start an agency will tell you to do the opposite. It worked for us. The second thing is our very first hire outside of those 5 by the end of the year. So additional hire was somebody to focus on sales and business development. Okay. And I think in startup mode, we get so stuck in this sell deliver cycle, right? We're gonna sell some stuff, and then we're all in. Everybody's delivering this amazing thing, right? And we get to the end of the project, and we're like, crap, we got to sell something else, and we go out and sell. And it's a very hard cycle to break out of. And I remember at my first agency, there was a time about 6 years in where we kind of hit this revenue plateau. And for a couple of years, we had been growing, right? We could not get past it. And it really came down to that sell deliver cycle. And so Murillo and I were both doing the sales at that point. And so we would sell, and he was mostly doing the sales. So he would sell until we needed him in projects. And all that to say, we hired a salesperson, a devoted person that would, any lead that we could possibly come up with, come in or meet at a lunch, right? We would pass off to that person, and they would chase that thing down until we knew if there was anything there or not. Yeah. And she is still with 5x5 today. And I think she is one of the most, I shouldn't say this, but nobody can take her because she loves us so much, but one of the most brilliant business development people in our space. And I think that of all the things we did was probably the most significant is we've got to get capacity quickly. We've got to focus on sales, and then we're going to continue to sell, and we're going to build out as we sell it. We're going to build it out, but we're never going to stop selling.
That's a great lesson for agency owners because they add salespeople way too late.
That's right.
Or they never have a salesperson.
Yes.
And it's the classic, like, almost freelancer model where
it is.
The freelancer goes and gets the business. They're busy working on the business, and 5 other deals pass them by.
That's right.
So
there was a day, my first agency, where we were talking about why can't we get past this? And it came up like, is it a business development problem? And somebody said to me, let me show you this. And he opened a folder on his computer and said, I've got 10 inquiries here that I can't even respond to. It was just this moment where I was like, well, there's our growth problem right there. But we all get stuck in that, right? Like it's urgent and important, and biz dev is always important, but getting that project delivered on time is urgent, and urgent always wins.
Support for The Spark comes from our sponsor, Snapshot. Building something that matters takes more than a good idea. It takes a brand people trust and a system that reaches the right people. Snapshot is a performance-driven marketing agency that helps businesses grow with strategy, creativity, and measurable results. To learn how to build scalable systems for sustainable growth, visit the link in our show notes. Well, over the years, you've also won Best Place to Work many times. And, we've talked a little bit about culture, but like, what is that secret sauce that maybe you've done beyond the communication and, hiring great teams? Like, what else do you do to create such an extraordinary culture?
I think is such a simple word to say and so hard to do, but just respecting people, right? And there's a mutual respect in that. So it's that, going back to that, the 8th grade English class, setting expectations. The first expectation that I would set, the very first day that class would walk in, I would say to them, I have one main rule in here, and you have to respect everybody in this classroom. And the minute that you are disrespectful either to me or to any of your classmates, this is talking to 13-year-old boys, right? Yeah. You're out of here. And they'd kind of look at me, and I was real careful, Mark, that first week. Like, you have the first time it happens, you have to do it, right? And somebody would just mock a classmate, and I would look at them and I'd say, you're out.
Wow.
And I could create this place, right, where kids came in, they knew, unlike most of your middle school classes, you're not going to be embarrassed, you're not going to be made fun of, and I created that from day one. And so it's not been perfect, but that's the model I've really tried to do at the agency, is that we're going to respect you. Like, we're going to be real. We're all going to be honest with each other. You're going to know what we're thinking. I love the book, Five Dysfunctions of a Team. Mm-hmm. I mean, we've always said, like, that is the foundation of what we believe. Like, it starts, it just starts with, do we have that respect and trust for each other? We have every year since we started 5x5, we have done Five Dysfunctions of a Team as a team every October.
Really?
Go through it every single year. So for some people, it's their first time. And I will tell you this, 12, 13, 14 years in, I see something different in it because it's where you're at, right? Yeah. Where you're at as a business, as a team, as a dynamic. Mm-hmm. I see something different in it every single year. But we kind of set that as this is if you want to know how we operate, this is how we try to operate. And we kind of go back to that.
Wow. And you said the executive team or the entire team?
Entire team.
So it's that important to you that you take the entire.
It's the core. If there is one thing you read coming in new, if there's one thing you have to understand, it's the culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? Mm-hmm. I believe that. It's that in order to be successful as a team, we have to function as an optimal team. And so that really starts with culture.
Yeah. Well, so you've built this big agency. It's running very, very well. You've got an amazing culture. It's a very desired agency for people to want to come in and acquire. But you took a route with 3LS Professional Services where, you have an ESOP. And so you were purchased, but it purchased into an ESOP. Yeah. And I know there's going to be a lot of agency folks that are going to want to hear that story. I mean, we've contemplated it over the years, is how do we give back to the entire team that has really helped us build what we've got today.
That's right.
And so I'm excited to hear the story, but also just what was it in your world that made you go, it's time?
Yeah. We were having lunch with a new client and at Del Frisco's in Brentwood on the patio. Nice. I'll never forget this moment either. And the client, it was a consulting, so another professional service company. So not what we do, but similar. Mm-hmm. And I will never forget him looking across the table at me, and he said, "We're employee owned." And Mark, all I could picture is being behind a plumbing truck, right? Like at a stoplight, and we're employee owned. And it struck me that this consulting company was employee owned. Mm-hmm. And I just had this moment of, what does that even really mean, right? Besides a plumbing truck, what does that mean and how does that work? And so instead of this being a discovery for us to learn about this new client, I peppered this poor person with questions, the rest, tell me what that means and how does that function? And, I've heard of it, we've all heard of it, but it was the first time where it was on my horizon as this could be something we could think about. And so I love to learn, and when I just kind of can deep dive on something, and I went deep for the next about 2 years on employee ownership. Every podcast, every book, every article, and I I found other agencies that were employee owned, and I would, just send an email to the CEO and say, "Hey, I'd love to hear about this journey." And without exception, they would respond to me same day. My favorite topic, let's talk. And so just talking to other people that had done it and that were really honest, the good, the bad, it really became something that I thought was possible for us. And so for me, when we started 5x5, maybe because we had started other agencies, we went in it thinking, what's our end game? I don't know the first time we did, what's our end game was just survive, right? We went into it thinking, what do we want to do with this? What are we building to? And we had a number out there, right? When we get to this value, we would consider selling. Well, we grew fast. And so we got there quicker than we thought we would. And so then there was this time where we're like, what do we think we're worth today? Well, so we're running, the back of the napkin. So we paid for a valuation that came back and showed that probably by the next year, we'd be at that number we had set. And every time we were on an Inc. 5000 list, the sellers come out of the woodwork, right?
Yeah.
Like they just like you're just inundated. Like it is the target list of like, please acquire us. And so I'm having all these. It's happening at the same time, right? I'm having these, and we're looking at this valuation. I'm like, is this it? And I had this kind of pit in my stomach that the finish line that we were running to was the day I would stand up in front of this team. Many of that leadership team has been there almost from day one. All 5 of us that started are still there. Hire 6 is still there, right? So I would stand up in front of that team and say, guys, we did it. I cashed out. Here's your new owner. Goodbye. Wouldn't have been quite like that, but in my mind it was, right? And I thought, that finish line doesn't feel as good as it should. And so as I started looking at employee ownership and realizing how it works, and I thought this feels so in line with what we built with the team that's here. And so we decided to become employee owned on our own, to do our own ESOP. Maybe we just don't follow rules well, but we also did what they will tell you not to do in ESOP space, which is we took our leadership team away a year before we did it, and we told them this is the path we're on, and this is the valuation we would like to get, and if we can hit these numbers this year, this is what, and that we will do a partial or a whole ESOP. We weren't sure at the time. So that leadership team came back from that, Mark. So we had to slow them down. They came back so excited and motivated. They started learning about that, what that meant for them. And they also just said, like, it answered the questions because they were starting to think, what happens, right? When Shannon and Josh and Mike want to sell, what happens? And so to know the path, right? It's that clarity piece, right? They were so motivated, and we had to actually pull them together and say, hey, okay, you guys are gonna have to calm down a little because you're scaring everybody else that doesn't know why you are so energized this year. But we had a great year, and so at the end of that year, we began the process, and so I've done this both ways.
Okay.
We set up an ESOP trust and became 30% employee owned. You will hear from people that it is so complicated and difficult. That is true. Also, my corporate taxes are really complicated and difficult, but I don't do them, right? So I would say yes and. Like, that is one of the misconceptions I think about ESOP is we always start with this, it's so complex and it is, but there also are specialists that handle the complexity for you. And so I found it to be way less complex than it had been sold to me because we had the right people helping us. So we became 30% employee owned. And shared with the whole team. Actually took everybody to Disney World. Wow. So it was our 10th anniversary, and we were planning a 10th anniversary trip, a retreat, not uncommon for us to do. And then a few weeks before, we said, we'll give you details. And, we had an Oprah moment, and everybody opened Mickey Mouse ears and went crazy. And we said, we're all going to Disney World. What they didn't know was the very first night before we went anywhere in the parks, we had a dinner together, and then we told them that they owned 30% of the agency at that point. And when you say that to people, it's also scary because they don't know what that means, right? And you have to answer the real quick questions like, no, you don't owe us any money. No, you don't, right? Like, there's a lot
I
of
could only imagine the amount of questions.
I mean, the questions of like, who do I report to? Same people. Who's in charge? Still us, right? But there's a lot. It's confusing because it's not a common. I wish it were more common than it was. So then we spent about a year, 30% employee owned, doing a lot of communicating with our team on what that means, what that looks like. Doesn't mean we're a democracy and we all vote now, right? Structure's still the same, but the 30% of the value at the end of the year gets distributed into your accounts like a 401k. It's an ERISA governed plan. And so right alongside another misconception is that a lot of ESOPs don't have 401ks. I've heard it said like you put all your eggs in one basket, which is not true. The majority of ESOPs also have K plans. We do too. So we're saying, please do your work for yourself, right? Put your money into a 401k plan. In addition to that, you're going to see growth over here that is qualified retirement, or when you leave, it's your money. I mean, it's your cash. It's like your 401k. So a lot of training around that, a lot of discussion around what it looks like. Towards the end of the year, I was meeting with Eric Strickland, who's the CEO of 3LS. He actually had been a mentor to me through doing our own ESOP. Okay. So I'd met him in the employee ownership community. He'd been very supportive. He will now tell the story. When he actually first came into our office, before we became 30% employee owned, he walked in, and within 30 minutes, he said to me, "There's an easier way to do this. You can be acquired by an ESOP." And I joke now. I think we were kind of in the like the teenage years of like, we're going to do it on our own. You know, like we want to move out and live on our own. And then we did our own ESOP. We found out like, groceries cost a lot. And like living on your own is hard. And by the end of that year, we could have absolutely continued on. Like there was no reason why we felt like we had to sell. But we had an amazing opportunity to go from 30% to 100% employee owned. And the difference is, too, in the way we were doing it, we were holding notes as sellers. There's a lot of ways to do it, Mark. Mm-hmm. But we were funding that purchase over a number of years. Okay. And when a buyer comes in like 3LS, they have the capital. So it's it's much closer to a traditional acquisition to do it that way for the seller. And then all the same benefits, maybe even more for the employee owners. So our team was, those that have been there, like were vested in based on their time with Five by Five, just all these great benefits for them. And our team was really excited. 3LS had been a client for a couple of years, which was great because they knew 3LS, trusted 3LS, knew how great the organization was. But also, when you tell them you're going from 30% employee ownership to 100%, they get what that means financially for them too. So it was a significant decision, and it was one of the best decisions I think we've ever made.
Yeah. What I'm sure there's a lot of agency owners going, "Wow, this sounds exciting," but what's in it for Shannon during that time, or what would be in it for Mark to do the 30%? And then ultimately, like, my thought is it's just like an acquisition. So I might take chips off the table at that time.
Exactly right.
But in the 30%, what was in it for Shannon?
Well, we were getting cashed out for that 30%. Okay. So you can actually do bank financing. So if you want the cash immediately, there's the potential. We actually were approved for the full 30% value for that to be financed by a bank. So then the company has that debt, and you have taken those chips. Okay. Completely off the table. That's an option. Some people use it as it's very effective if you have one shareholder who wants to leave earlier than others. So I had two business partners. We were 3 different generations. So Mike was a boomer. I'm Gen X. Josh is the oldest millennial, but he claims it when it's useful for him. So Mike was nearing retirement. Josh and I weren't. So we could have done it where his percent could have been bought out with the potential for us to sell the whole thing or do something later. So it's also, I think it's very effective in those situations as well. Yeah.
Well, I think I read somewhere that you say like it's a employee get rich slow opportunity is the
that's been attributed to multiple people. I usually attribute it to Eric Strickland, our CEO, because that's where I heard it. But I think it's the best way. One of the things you have to, it's like a 401k. You say, we talk about, if I had started this in my 20s and had invested this much over time, it would have grown. ESOP is very similar to that. So you have to be very careful when you're hiring people that they don't think they're going to come in 5 years later, I'm going to look at my balance and it's going to be just ridiculous. It's not. But if you're there over time and then that amount continues, like it grows. The compound growth rate of that is significant. We're beating the market by 2 and 3 a lot of years in that. So again, for employees, you can't beat that. You just can't. We've had the other side of the business is a lot of human service work. We have foster care case managers that have worked for their entire career managing a caseload of foster care. Very hard work to do. And have stayed with 3LS for, our ESOP's been around quite a while, have stayed with 3LS for decades and, retire with a lot of money.
Yeah, well, that's amazing.
A lot of, like, more than they ever could have put away in that time. And so we're really proud of that.
Yeah.
And I would say, Mark, I think ESOPs are one of the very few things that are truly bipartisan. If you look congressionally, and they continue to get support across the aisle because it is one of the very few things, I don't know of another one, that is all the way down to capitalistic and rewarding that founder and the risk that we put into it and the blood, sweat, and tears, but also creates this wealth growth engine for a team and frontline workers in a way that we don't have pension plans anymore, in a way that we really need in our country.
Yeah. Wow. Well, you say get rich slow, but you've also made a few acquisitions after 5x5. So, I mean, I know you mentioned that kind of compounding, what the entire team participates. That's right. Even the new teams.
Yeah. Yeah. So we will continue to do acquisitions. We closed one on the human service side, hundreds of employees earlier this year. We bought for professional services, a group that I lead, bought an MSP, an internet and cybersecurity firm out of Cincinnati with 70 employees in the fall of last year. And so part of what we do as leadership in an ESOP, I mean, we work for the shareholders, right? So it's this really interesting model. So part of what we have to do is figure out how do we reinvest? ESOPs also don't pay any taxes on their earnings. Was created that way by the government to incentivize employee ownership. It's a very significant factor. So how do we take that free cash flow and all of that to reinvest in growth? And it's part of the reason why we decided to join with 3LS instead of doing it on our own is their track record of significant growth, and then ultimately what that does to the balances for those shareholders. I'm not saying I couldn't have beat it, but I probably couldn't have beat it myself. And it's so fun for our team to be a part of that.
Wow. Well, was there anything that you had to give up as like the CEO of 5x5?
Yeah. I mean, so when I did 30%, it's very interesting. You don't even give up control. You're still the controlling shareholder. So we owned collectively 70%, very little changed in that. When we sold 100%, I mean, then it's the very typical transaction, selling to another. ESOP is a typical transaction on what do you want your roles to be, how long are you going to be here. I would say, again, there's a lot of perceptions that you give up a lot on the value. I would say we got a very fair value. I was very happy with the value that we got. I think there are situations, probably more outside of agency and service industries, where if you're looking for a real strategic buyer multiple, you're not going to see that as much in an ESOP space because we've got to pay fair market value because we have shareholders to answer to, right? Like we can't go back to our team and say, we spent a whole lot on this, but we think it's going to be, there's a risk limitation there. Honestly, that doesn't happen much in agency space, right? Like unless you have a real specific skill set or, SaaS product or whatever, it's highly unlikely you're going to find somebody that's going to pay crazy multiples just because you're so strategically valuable to them. So taking that off, right? If we had thought or we had an opportunity to do that, we would have given up a lot. I didn't see that path for us. So I feel like we got a very, very fair multiple.
Yeah, well, and I think this is probably really good for the agency world. Like most agency owners that I know have never paid themselves what they're worth because they always reinvest back in their team. That's right. They want their team to win all along the way. And so it just sounds like this is a really great opportunity for agency owners to look at.
Yeah. If I have a new mission in life, and I do, I mean, employee ownership has become the thing that I am the most passionate about. And if I have one thing I would like to do, it's to get more selling business owners to consider it. There are there are times when it will not be the right choice. But I think there are so many more business owners, if I had not accidentally been sitting on that patio and for whatever reason that light bulb went off, right, we would have done something else and we would have missed this opportunity. So I would just encourage everybody to go look for yourself. And there is misconception out there. There are agency experts that I can go to the blogs and show you the 10 things that are wrong with ESOPs, and I can tell you 8 of those are actually factually wrong. It's a lot of misconception. So I would say do your own work and do what I do. Find, just search around for some other employee-owned agencies and call those leaders. I mean, there's no better person to learn from than the person that's been through it. And we'll be very honest with you about the things that are, there is some complexity in running it afterwards. Again, it's nothing unusual for us. We do a lot of complex things, but we will be honest with you, but talk to somebody that's done it.
Well, that's interesting. What do you see as being the number one mistake that somebody would make if they were considering this?
Yeah, I think it is writing it off too soon. So like I said, I think there are things that are said like it's complex. One of the things that is frustrating to me as a communicator in the employee ownership space, I have made this opinion pretty loudly known, is that it is an industry that is dominated by the service providers. So the attorneys, the valuation firms, the accountants. And so they are incentivized for you to understand how complex it is, right? So that you need their services, okay? There's great service providers too. But I would say overall, the communications tends to be from those service providers. So it jumps right into what is a repurchase obligation and how do you get warrants in your deal? And people are like, I don't even know. What are we talking about, right? So I think we confuse people out of the space.
Yeah.
So I would say dig deep enough that you understand the mechanics just enough to know if it's really right for you.
Yeah. Well, I bet you a bunch of people, and I love your story, and you've clearly won, your team's won because of you. And, there probably were times at 5 by 5 as an outsider, we look at it and you go, it was just a meteoric rise to success. But there had to have been a time in there where you kind of questioned, did I do the right thing here by...
How many times, right?
Yeah.
How many times have we had
Was
those?
there a time where you thought, man, this
sure.
may or may not work out?
Yeah, yes. COVID was terrible. COVID was horrible. I just remember being stuck in my basement, running financial modules to see how long we were going to be in business, right? Because, 3 out of every 4th client has called us and said, we can't pay you our money next month. Great, we understand. What are we going to do? Because I still have payroll to make. So it was a terrible time. It just was. I'm proud of any agency owner and leader that just made it through it. It was survival for most of us. Another thing that comes to mind is that really exciting time when we told our leadership team that we were on the path to employee ownership. We got back from that retreat. They were so excited, and within 90 days, we had either lost or had significant reduction in 3 of our 4 largest clients. All for different reasons, right? And a new leader comes in, all the things we know in agency. New leader comes in, has their own people, and this one got acquired, and marketing budget got slashed. So it felt like things very out of our control. I'm always big with team, we have to own what's in our control. There are things, we lose things and it's our fault and we have to own it. These felt very out of our control. And so we went from, we're going to kill this year to, are we going to survive this year? But I think the motivation of that team of we know the path we're on now, right? We pulled together, we salvaged some of those, we made it. But I really felt at that point like we have now promised this team something that I don't know if we're going to be able to deliver on.
Oof.
And I hope we survive it, right? I hope we don't have to do layoffs. I hope we don't, and we didn't. But you question in the middle of those, right? A lot of things.
Yeah, you're right. How many times?
How many?
I think the same thing. And so, well, I guess, Shannon, as we're starting to wrap up, like, what is the legacy that you want to leave with 5 by 5? And then what is the legacy you want to leave for Shannon in Nashville, in the agency space? Like, what do you hope it looks like?
Yeah. I mean, I want 5 by 5 to continue. I'm not involved in the day-to-day anymore, which is weird. I was actually in the office
Probably
yesterday,
hard, right?
walking through, and I walked into one of our client directors that's been there forever, and I said, I don't know these people. Like, there's so many new hires I don't even know. It's hard.
Yeah.
But to watch them thrive, doing great work and bringing great new people in, and you just have to be proud. Like, that's a legacy thing. Mm-hmm. I'm not involved in making those decisions that are impacting it today, but I help build the foundation. Yeah. So I'm really proud of that. I want to build an agency where we can, not only do great work for great change-making organizations to grow good, whatever good looks like in that organization, but also where at the end of the day, those employees know that their future and their family's future is better because of it. And for myself, I mean, I just take that and expand it, right? Like I try to live my life that people matter most. I mean, at the end of the day, none of this matters, right? People matter most. Yeah. And for me, it's my family. And it's the people that I come in contact with. And so how I think employee ownership fits so well into that's why I'm so passionate about it, is I have seen that it is life-changing, it is future-changing, it is family tree-changing. And so if there's one or two more agencies that their employees become owners because of something I've been able to share, that'll be success.
Wow. Well, people matter most. You say that a lot, and it's great to hear you say it because you can just hear the conviction in your voice. And so it's amazing what you've done. It's amazing what you've done for your team. And people do matter most. So thank you for sharing that. And thanks for all your wisdom. Is there anything like that I didn't ask you that you think would be beneficial to the audience, or anything you want to talk about?
I don't think so. I mean, I'll just say right back to you, it's been really fun. I wish we had spent more time together over the years.
I know.
It's not enough, right? We're all too busy. I did get to spend time with you a few years ago, and it was significant. I love that you do this because I think we need each other, right? We're not competitors. Like, we might compete on one thing or another, but at the end of the day, we're all trying to do the same thing. Yeah. And I think we can make each other better. And so I'm grateful for the time that you took a few years ago when we were 5 by 5 was not anything at that point, just to talk about Snapshot and how you run things. I think we shared some really good ideas that day. Totally. And so I'm grateful for that, Mark.
Well, thank you. We should have done it. We should have stayed a lot closer through the years, but
it's not over.
I feel so lucky that I was able to get you in here and share your story. And if you're okay with it, because I know there's going to be some people that might have questions, I'd love to drop your information in the show notes, just in case an agency has questions about ESOP or anything.
I would be happy to answer any questions.
Well, Shannon, thanks for being a part of it. Thanks for all you're doing, and look forward to staying in touch with you now. And thank you all for being a part of the Spark today and listening. What a fabulous episode. Shannon definitely answered a lot of questions about ESOP and culture building and leadership, and I've just been so impressed with Shannon over the years. And so, great to have her on the show. I'm great that you came back. If you would, please subscribe, rate, and review, just so we can get this out to more people that need to hear it. Until next week, we'll see you on the Spark.
That's a wrap on this episode of The Spark from Creative Assembly. Thanks for spending time with us and exploring the minds shaping Nashville's creative future. If you're walking away more inspired, connected, or energized, that's exactly the point. A big thank you to our sponsor, Snapshot, and the incredible team behind the scenes who make this show possible. Your support fuels every conversation and keeps collaboration alive. So if you haven't already, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a review. Thanks again for tuning in. Until next time, stay creative, stay curious, and keep that spark.